Grounding itself on the needs of national development, UPLB cultivates well-rounded and critical leaders who are ready to lead breakthroughs and innovations. Through its industrial and academic partnerships, UPLB propagates its gains to advance inclusive development in various sectors. An educational institution that upholds honor, excellence, and public service.
A 112 years ago, the UP Board of Regents had a vision to develop their true firstborn college that will spearhead national development through agriculture. At the foot of Mount Makiling, Edwin B. Copeland, together with 7 faculty and 12 students, embarked on the journey to create the UP College of Agriculture, or UPCA. Through its 112 years of existence, the college has produced over 1,000 technologies and variety of plants and animals, 9 national scientists, over 30 outstanding young scientists, and more than 18,000 graduates contributing to agricultural development. UPCA, now College of Agriculture and Food Science, or CAFS, has been continuously contributing to nation building through its instruction, research, and extension function. A mere 10 years after establishment, the college was able to start breeding works with the production of sugarcane varieties with high productivity and resistance to Fiji and mosaic disease. In the 1920s, agriculture was intensified and UPCA was recognized as neighboring countries began sending their students to Los Baños because of the high quality of education. In the 1930s, breeds with superior characteristics such as the Burke Halipig, Los Baños Cantonese chicken, and filament cattle were developed. The 1960s was a fruitful decade for research. Makapuno, a coconut cultivar often made into a dessert, was pioneered and perfected. Meanwhile, the Dairy Training and Research Institute was the first in the country to freeze buffalo semen, paving the way for artificial insemination of local carabaos. Along with the establishment of UPLB in the 70s, the college received the prestigious Ramon Magsaysay Award for International Understanding, Asia's counterpart for the Nobel Peace Prize. In the same decade, the C4 plants were developed. The soil test kits were produced in support of the Masagana 99 program, and the mango induction technique was introduced. Continuing the production of quality research outputs in the 1980s, techniques to minimize post-harvest losses, the accelerated fish sauce manufacturing process, and the rapid test kit for the detection of pesticide residue on vegetables were developed. The 1990s saw many new varieties across species or crop types, including Sinta papaya, the first Philippine-bred hybrid, UPLB Gold, a durian variety, and Doña Amelita, a musaenda named after the wife of former President Fidel Ramos. The award-winning National Corn-Based Farmer Scientist RDE Training Program, or FSTP, was also established around this time and still remains as one of the university's primary extension programs. In the field of instruction, the book titled Integrating Sustainable Agriculture in the BSA Curriculum, the UPLB College of Agriculture Experience, was published in 1999. At present, the College of Agriculture and Food Science, or CAFS, continues to be the premier institution of higher learning in agriculture and food science, and remains committed to nation building through its instruction, research, and extension programs. In order to produce the best graduates, all of our courses are outcomes-based education, and continuous improvement of the curriculum is being practiced to meet the challenges of the 21st century. As testament of excellence, CAFS is constantly recognized by different organizations. In research, we continue to implement relevant studies with focus on the 12 priority commodities to address food security. Moreover, technologies are constantly developed to aid in responsible food production. Supplementing these are extension activities to disseminate the knowledge generated to improve food productivity and livelihood of the people. We believe that present technologies will future-proof our food systems. Some of our notable developments are IDTech, Coraginam, Plant Health and Pest Clinic, Pest Management Tools and Techniques, Smarter Pest Identification Technology or SPIDTech, Snap Hydroponics, Drone Technology, Rapid Immunofilter Assay for Virus Indexing, Nanofertilizers Fertigrow, Herbagrow, Nanobiosensors, Biochar, we at the College of Agriculture and Food Science will continue to promote and nurture a culture with innovative yet conscientious minds and cutting-edge skills to lead and serve the country and the region. We are one college with one goal towards sustainable food systems.
Southeast Asia is predominantly agricultural, but increased production of horticulture crops has not been adequate to meet demand. The main cause is high post-harvest loss. A Philippine survey on selected fruits and vegetables showed that post-harvest losses ranged from 32 to 78% or even higher under unfavorable circumstances, such as typhoons and delayed shipment. Post-harvest handling system is the weakest link in the production marketing chain for fresh produce. High post-harvest losses mean less available food and reduced income for farmers and traders. The time, resources, and labor used for production are also wasted. If losses are reduced by 10%, the country could save millions of pesos per year. The present PHTRC without the ASEAN is known simply as PHTRC. Its vision is to be the center of academic and technological excellence on post-harvest science of tropical horticultural crops in the ASEAN region that is internationally connected and industry-oriented. Its mission is to modernize and enhance the global competitiveness of the Philippine horticulture industry through post-harvest systems development and improvement. The center is guided by 3 major mandates. Most post-harvest basic researches in the country are done at PHTRC. It covers morphoanatomy, biochemistry, pathology and entomology, post-harvest physiology, biotechnology, engineering studies conducted in collaboration with the Agricultural and Bioprocessing Division of the Institute of Agricultural Engineering, UPLB, and socioeconomics. These basic researches have led to the development of technologies. The PHTRC Extension program and activities include action research projects and technical assistance to industry. PHTRC also offers summer short courses and regular courses for different industry stakeholders, holds conferences and study tours, participates in various agri-exhibits nationwide. The PHTRC has produced educational materials on post-harvest handling. It also continues to provide assistance to the horticulture industry, academic institutions, and research agencies. Through the years, PHTRC has supported instruction. It handles 8 subjects, leading to post-harvest field of specialization that is being offered by the Institute of Crop Science. It also supports instructional activities by initiating courses, publishing teaching materials, and providing its facilities for the courses. Today, the PHTRC continues its research and extension programs towards reducing losses, maintaining quality, and ensuring safety of perishable crops. The PHTRC still faces the challenge generating more basic information. It has to develop new and better post-harvest technologies and systems. It has to address training needs and strengthen the post-harvest extension delivery system. All these are being done towards a globally competitive horticulture industry.
A pleasant morning, everyone. Magandang umaga po sa lahat. And welcome to the 7th episode of Fresh Talks, the PHTRC webinar series. This is a special edition as we are celebrating PHTRC at 45, 4.5 decades of the post-harvest horticulture training and research center service and support of the tropical horticulture industry. We are currently viewed via Zoom and streaming live simultaneously at the PHTRC's official Facebook page. The theme of today's webinar is Global Collaboration in Food Loss and Waste Reduction. This takes us down memory lane, interestingly, since 45 years ago, the PHTRC was specifically established through funds from the Australian government and the ASEAN Economic Cooperation Project in response to the 1975 United Nations General Assembly resolution to reduce post-harvest losses. This year's PHTRC anniversary webinar aims to gather and provide a forum for agency collaborators from selected countries to discuss their institutional initiatives and programs or projects towards minimizing horticultural food loss and waste, highlighting the importance and magnitude of post-harvest and food losses in general, and the current issues, challenges, and research and development gaps, given the uncertainties especially brought about by the pandemic, climate change, and trends in global trade. For this anniversary webinar, we have invited esteemed resource speakers from the University of California, Davis, Australia's Applied Horticultural Research, and Korea's Rural Development Administration. With this modest initiative, we look forward to contributing to a strengthened collaboration in post-harvest research and development and food loss and waste reduction in fresh horticultural produce. This will surely be a fruitful morning, so please stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Arlan Rodeo, and I will be your host this morning. For the invocation, may I call on Ms. Nervena Ramos, and then followed by our national anthem.
May I invite everyone for a short prayer. Lord God, today we are celebrating the 45th anniversary of PHTRC. We are thankful and grateful for the many opportunities and collaborations we had for the past 45 years of public service And we are looking forward to more years of fruitful and productive years of service as we render the mission, vision, and goals of the center. We are praying that this webinar's objectives be achieved. Bless the participants, O Lord, and the speakers we invited. May the information needs of our participants and viewers be satisfied through this webinar. May they find the topics and the discussions relevant, useful, and timely. Thank you for providing us with the resources to make this webinar possible. We can do all things through you who strengthens us. We offer to you this activity, O Lord. All glory and honor we lift up to you. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Again, we are live via Zoom and the PHTRC's official Facebook page. And just a reminder to our participants, here are some house rules. Please fill out the attendance form at bit.ly/PHTRC at 45. The link will be sent in your chat box and in the FB comment section. We also encourage you to ask questions during the Q&A segment after the presentation of our resource speaker. A Google link form for the questions will be provided in the Zoom chat box and Facebook Live comment section. Only those who completed and submitted the evaluation form will receive a certificate. So hope everything's clear. And to formally welcome us to today's webinar, let me call on the Director of the Post-Harvest Horticulture Training and Research Center, or PHTRC, Dr. Dormita Del Carmen. Good morning, Ma'am Dormi. Take it away.
To the Chancellor of the University of the Philippines, Los Baños, Dr. Jose Cabacho Jr., to our Dean of the College of Agriculture and Food Science, Dr. L.P. Chagpisit Jr., to our internationally renowned guest speakers, Dr. Elizabeth Mitchell of the University of California, Davis, Dr. Jenny Ekman of Australia's Applied Horticultural Research, and on behalf of Dr. Q Songli, Dr. Ji Kang Kim of Korea's Allium Vegetable Research Institute, Rural Development Administration, to all our participants from across the country and some across the globe, a pleasant morning or evening. On behalf of the Post-Harvest Horticulture Training and Research Center, I am very pleased to welcome all of you in today's special webinar with the theme Global Collaboration in Food Loss and Waste Reduction, in celebration of the Center's 45th founding anniversary. Since 1977, the PHTRC has been collaborating with international and national institutions and agencies in the implementation of research, development, and extension activities and initiatives in support of the food loss reduction program. Today, more than ever, there is a heightened awareness globally on the need to reduce losses and waste, and this is specified in SDG 12.3, Responsible Production and Consumption, which targets to have food losses by 2030 to address world food insecurity and hunger. Corollary to this, managing quality and safety in horticultural perishables is also a major agenda to address the new trends in global trade, the changing consumer demands and demographics, including the challenges and uncertainties brought about by climate change and the pandemic. We hope that in this webinar, we will be able to learn fresh insights and innovative strategies towards strengthening collaborative efforts on food loss and waste reduction, particularly in the pursuit of RDE in post-harvest handling of fresh horticultural produce with the end view of improving food security and sustainability. I would like to take this opportunity to thank our university officials, our invited guest speakers, and the participants for gracing this significant event. And lastly, I would like to thank all the PHTRC staff, especially the Extension Committee led by Dr. Matilde Maunahan for putting up this special webinar. Thank you and God bless us all.
Thank you very much, Dr. Del Carmen, for that message, and happy 45th anniversary PHTRC. Now we move on with the program. Let us hear the opening message of our ever supportive Dean of the College of Agriculture and Food Science, or CAFS, Dr. Elpidio Agbisit Jr. Good morning, Dean.
To Dr. Dermita R. Del Carmen, Director of the Post-Harvest Horticulture Training and Research Center, to the speakers, Dr. Elizabeth J. Mitchum, UC Davis Director of the Post-Harvest Technology Center and Horticulture Innovations Lab, to Dr. Jenny Ekman of Australia's Applied Horticultural Research, and Dr. Kyu Seong Lee, Director of the Korean Program on International Agriculture, Philippines Center, to the organizers of this event, to the men and women of PHTRC, all the guests, friends, partners, a blessed morning to all. On behalf of the College of Agriculture and Food Science, I wish to congratulate PHTRC in its Sapphire anniversary with the theme, Global Collaboration in Food Loss and Waste Reduction. 8 years from now, by 2030, the world should have halved the food waste at the retail and consumers level and reduced food losses along production and supply chains. The college has been a strong forerunner for Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, through its instruction, research, and extension functions. Aside from SDG 12, CAPS have been tackling directly SDG 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 9, 11, 13, 15, 16, and 17. By addressing these goals, we are contributing indirectly to SDGs 4, 7, 10, and 14. The speakers for today will definitely share their knowledge to us on post-harvest research and development and food loss and waste reduction in fresh horticultural produce. With your imparted knowledge, we hope that we can continue in contributing to the attainment of SDGs as well as on our personal goal, and that is to contribute to a resilient and sustainable food systems. Thank you, everyone. May all your dreams and aspirations come true. Hiraya Manawari.
Thank you very much to our ever supportive Dean Agbisit for that wonderful message. And now, may I request everyone to please turn on your video cameras for a brief photo op. So everybody, I hope you can turn on your video cameras and we'll have a brief photo op. All right, so tech team, so take photos when everybody's ready. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Smile. Next, if we have next Zoom page, 1, 2, 3. Smile. Say PHTRC. All right, are we good?
Okay na po.
All right, thank you. All right, so we will be starting now our plenary session proper. It is my pleasure and honor to introduce our first resource speaker, Dr. Elizabeth Mitchum. She is a professor of extension and a pomologist in the Department of Plant Sciences at the University of California, Davis. Dr. Mitchum works closely with the produce industry on a range of research and outreach activities, and her research improves the quality of fruits and vegetables and reduces loss after harvest. She also serves as director of the UC Post-Harvest Technology Center. The center focuses on maintaining the quality and safety of fruits and vegetables after harvest through their educational programs and informative website. Dr. Mitchum is also active in international research and development activities and serves as the director of the Horticulture Innovation Lab, where she leads a $15 million research program. Dr. Mitchum was selected Outstanding International Horticulturist and elected Vice President of the International Division by the American Society for Horticultural Sciences, or ASHS, in 2015 and 2016. Her team won the UC Davis Chancellor's Innovation Award in 2018, and she was elected a Fellow of ASHS in 2020. Ladies and gentlemen, let us all welcome from California, USA, Dr. Elizabeth J. Mitchum. Good morning, Dr. Mitchum.
Good morning. It's my pleasure to be here with everyone today. I appreciate the invitation very much to join in this auspicious occasion. I actually had the opportunity in the early 1990s when I first came to UC Davis to visit the University of the Philippines at Los Banos and also meet colleagues at the PHTRC. So it's really nice to join you to celebrate, and congratulations on 45 years. It's really amazing. Thank you very much to the director of the center and the dean for welcoming me, and Arlen Rodeo. You didn't mention it, but I want to say how happy I am to work with you here at UC Davis. And I'm really excited that you're the Master of Ceremonies for this event today. So let me jump into the slides so I don't run out of time. Please let me know if it doesn't look correct. All right, hopefully you're seeing my full slides. So I'm going to talk about some of the historical work that's been done at UC Davis, but also work going into the future and some of the challenges that I think we need to wrestle with to address the issue of food loss and waste. So horticultural crops, particularly fruits and vegetables, are very important for nutrition security because of the important nutrients that they have. And they're also great sources of income for farmers who are farming on a small scale. But unfortunately, as we all know, these products are perishable. And the linkage between the farm and the market is very important, and good post-harvest handling is the critical part of that. If you don't have good post-harvest handling, we're going to see a lot of losses and waste, which is not sustainable. We won't be able to meet the market demand, so the farmer won't make the income that they're hoping to achieve. And the incentives for farmers and handlers to improve their post-harvest handling really requires a good market linkage, because this means they might be rewarded for doing a better job. So that's market linkage is very important. But as you all know, and we heard a bit in the introductory presentation, post-harvest losses can be quite high, and you often hear this 30% being mentioned by lots of people in recent years, given the attention the topic is finally getting. But actually, the losses can be quite a bit higher, and that 30% is really based on a small number of studies. And we're starting to see more data coming out, but losses can be even as high as 80% in some cases. And of course, wasting all that food is not sustainable, and sustainability is also a very important topic that is receiving a lot of attention. And if you think about all the energy and resources that go into growing these beautiful crops, if we don't handle them well and they're lost before they get to the market and they're not consumed by people as intended, this is not sustainable. And of course, it's not good for food security either, because population's growing and all these people need to eat a more healthy diet, and fruits and vegetables are a really critical part of the nutrition security. So it's not just about calories, but it's about eating a healthy diet.
Excuse me, Dr. Mitchum, can you please share your PowerPoint slides? I think you're
not seeing the slides?
Yeah, we're not seeing the slides. I'm very sorry about that.
Oh, I did. Hang on. Oh, that's such a shame.
That's fine. We are live. So this is the proof that we are indeed live.
All right. Let's see. All right.
Right. That's great. Thank you.
Well, you're probably seeing, now you're seeing the full slide?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry. Thanks for letting me know. Forgot that one step. All right. So where does food loss occur? Well, losses can occur during storage, transportation, in the marketplace, and also at the consumer level. And of course, it varies in each of these locations. But the main causes of post-harvest loss, and this is not an exhaustive list, but primarily it's due to inappropriate temperatures, generally higher temperatures than desired, and also physical damage. Water loss is another, and then decay from pathogens, primarily fungi, but also bacteria. And then for dried products, inadequate drying and dry storage is also a challenge. So these are, particularly in emerging economies, we see these as the main causes of post-harvest losses. So historically, there have been some improvements made in post-harvest handling, and I'm focusing on some of the things that UC Davis has played a role in, but of course, researchers across the globe have focused on post-harvest biology and technology, but certainly a lot of improvements in cooling technology, increased understanding of the role of ethylene and how it's produced and how it acts, controlled and modified atmospheres, and then packaging improvements as well. And historically, the focus has been on extending the storage life and the shelf life. Post-harvest researchers, myself included, for decades, did research that was primarily had this goal. And we see now, and I'll talk more towards the end of my presentation, that our focus is shifting. But we were really focused on extending the shelf life and the storage life. So if we start off with the cold chain. So one of the big improvements in cold chain technology that occurred was the development of forced air cooling. So of course, before you get to forced air cooling, you have to have a cold room, and we'll talk about the fact that in some parts of the world that's very lacking. But assuming you have a cold room, forced air cooling is a great innovation that really speeds up the cooling process, and is particularly useful for really perishable crops and more for crops that need the lower temperatures. So in forced air cooling, we have we line our pallets of product up in kind of two lines with a tunnel, an open space in between, and a fan pulls the air out of that space to create a vacuum that then pulls the cold air past the product and cools it within hours, whereas it would otherwise take days to weeks to get to the optimal temperatures. Now, there have been innovations that allow this to be done on a very small scale. This simple little structure basically does the same thing. It has a very small fan here mounted on some plywood, and the product in totes is stacked on either side, tarp pulled over the top, and you can forced air cool within a small cold room. So it can be done at a small farm scale, and this has been implemented in some parts of the world. In more recent years, through my work with the Horticulture Innovation Lab, we've done a lot of work promoting a technology called the CoolBot, which allows for an inexpensive cold room to be built and managed for probably about a tenth the cost of a commercial cold room. And here you use a simple window air conditioner unit together with this CoolBot controller that tricks the air conditioner to cool to very low temperatures. And so you can cool to 2 degrees Celsius, sometimes even a little bit lower. And so it allows for small scale cold rooms to be utilized, particularly again in emerging economies where a commercial cold room is often out of reach. Another innovation that extended the storage and shelf life and also reduced a lot of post-harvest losses was the introduction of modified and controlled atmospheres. And this could be controlled atmosphere storage rooms, or it could be modified atmosphere packages. And so in this case, we're reducing the oxygen level, increasing the carbon dioxide level generally, and we may be controlling some other gases, but we're doing this in an attempt to maintain the quality of the product. So modified atmospheres are best viewed as a supplement to low temperature storage or shipping. They can help to keep tissues green, so they prevent the loss of chlorophyll. They retard the ripening, reduce microbial growth, and other kinds of disorders that can develop. And we're very familiar with modified atmosphere bags, but we can also cover the entire pallet, or we can have a bag inside the carton itself. Now with these modified atmosphere packages, they modify the oxygen and CO2 level, but they also act as a moisture barrier. And there are other kinds of plastic packaging that maybe doesn't modify the oxygen and CO2 levels, but modifies the relative humidity around the product and are very important for reducing water loss. And here's some different examples of products on the market and different ways of applying this. And this is very important for reducing water losses. Whether you're at high temperatures or lower temperatures, if the relative humidity is low, you're going to see a pretty rapid movement of water out of the product, which reduces saleable weight, texture, and quality issues can be major in this case. So plastic packaging serves some really important roles, and I'll come back to that towards the end of my talk. Here's another example from some research work just showing how a plastic bag can really help. Whether you're at 10 degrees with romaine lettuce, which is definitely higher than recommended, or you're at a more optimal temperature of a ½ degree, in a plastic bag, the water loss stays below 1% even after 8 days. But if you have that product open, it can be as high as 15 or 14%, or even at the best temperatures, it's at 5%. So the bag really helps a lot. So we've learned a lot about ethylene over the years. We know that ethylene can be really helpful, especially for a lot of our tropical fruits. It can help to accelerate ripening, like, encouraging softening and flavor development. It also has some negative effects on many of our vegetable crops and can really lead to a lot of losses. It was back in the 1970s that researcher at UC Davis, Shengfa Yang, and his postdoc, Doug Adams, discovered the critical remaining steps of the ethylene biosynthesis pathway and determined the enzymes that are the key enzymes that are responsible for producing ethylene. And this has led to, possibilities for slowing down the ripening of fruit in a variety of different ways. One is using genetic engineering to potentially change the expression of these genes through antisense technology, targeting these enzymes that are important, like at ACC synthase in particular. There's also been different ethylene mutants that have been identified that have longer shelf life. We now have long shelf life melons that ripen more slowly because they don't produce as much ethylene. And this particular Charente melon is a melon that has a very, very, very short shelf life. And when they antisense the ACC oxidase gene, they were able to prevent those melons from ripening unless they treated them with ethylene, because they were not able to produce ethylene on their own. However, these fruit that ripen very slowly, they also produce very low aroma volatiles. And that's one of the challenges, is that linkage between ethylene, which is really important for ripening regulation, but also very important for aroma production. So another compound that came out of that understanding of ethylene biosynthesis is 1-methylcyclic propene, and actually, or 1-MCP. And this actually was discovered when they were looking for the receptor for ethylene. And 1-MCP has a very similar structure to ethylene, and it's been used for a wide variety of fruits and vegetables to slow ripening and also inhibit yellowing and inhibit the effects of ethylene. And here's some work that I did on Bartlett pears showing that fruit treated with 1-MCP soften more slowly and were more green than those not treated. So there's been a lot of work looking at 1-MCP. It works better for some things than others. It can have impacts on flavor of products, and that's a challenge. And in the pear industry, there's a big debate within the industry about whether they should be using so much of this product, because it does affect the flavor. Moving on, as I see I'm running close out of time. So the Post-Harvest Technology Center at UC Davis, shares a lot with the PHTRC in terms of our goals and our efforts. And the center was founded in 1978 by Adel Cater. We have a host of researchers and extension specialists who worked with the center over the years. A lot of these people are retired now, but a lot of them are still working with us, which is really amazing, and we really appreciate that. We've been doing workshops all the way through the pandemic, and one of the great things that came out of the pandemic is that we started offering our classes virtually initially, and now we're continuing to have a hybrid approach so that we can have people join from all over the world without the expense of having to travel to California. So we have these classes that we offer pretty much every year, sometimes every other year, and that's been quite successful. We have our website that has a host of free information. We have a Produce Fact app that we developed, and we're in the process of updating our website. Okay, so I wanted to kind of wrap up the last part of my talk by talking a little bit about some of the challenges I see really, I think, a pretty big challenge for post-harvest researchers and the industry. And that is that there are all these needs within the produce sector that compete with each other. So we have food safety requirements and food safety needs, and we have environmental sustainability, which is very important. And then we want to reduce food loss and increase shelf life of products. And these things can be counteractive. They sometimes are at cross purposes with each other. And I'll explain what I mean by that. So take food safety as an issue. So in the United States in particular, we're very focused on microbial food safety. So there's a lot of effort to try to keep contaminated product out of the supply chain. Because once the bacteria from animal feces or whatever gets on the product, it's very difficult to remove it, no matter how much sanitizer you use in the water. So this is showing, in this case, these Canadian geese were in this field. They left behind some droppings, and the workers are out there ahead of the harvest machine, and they're looking for anything like this. And if they find it, they have to cordon off a big area of that field, which does not get harvested. So that food is lost, wasted. So that's one example where food gets wasted because of food safety concerns. Now, I mentioned before how important plastic packaging is for water loss reduction. Well, this is what happens with all the plastic. So we have this huge issue in the oceans and landfills, and a lot of places around the world, there's not even waste collection. So plastics just, a big problem everywhere. So countries are starting to ban, even California banned the use of single-use plastic. If it gets to the point where the produce industry has trouble using plastic, and that's happening in some places, what's the alternative? Do we have an alternative that will give them moisture barrier, potentially gas barrier properties, and is affordable? That's a big challenge that we need to be working on. And then we also see this sort of conflict between flavor and shelf life at times, where maybe we want to use 1 MCP to extend the shelf life of the product, but 1 MCP inhibits volatile production, so the product's not going to taste as good as if we didn't use 1 MCP. Just wanted to mention a couple things that some of my colleagues are working on. Professor Diane Beckles is looking at chilling injury and trying to understand how chilling injury of tomato in her model system is affecting the different gene expression pathways and the quality of the fruit. And then my colleague Li Tian has been looking at a number of different things, but I wanted to focus in on her work on phenolic metabolism, because here's another place where nutrition can be counter to flavor, because if you have high phenolics, you have more nutrition. But if you also have less flavor generally when you have high phenolics. Okay, so I think I've reached the end of my time, and I wanted to say thank you again for the invitation. I hope there'll be some time for questions, and thank you again. Stop my share. Okay, take it away, Arlen.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mitchum, for the very comprehensive presentation and for sharing with us UC Davis's long and rich history of helping reduce food loss and waste from fresh horticultural perishables. It's also an honor to be working with you, and thank you again for sharing all this information and for being with us here this morning. And before we proceed, aside from our esteemed guest speakers, we're also very honored to have with us this morning to give us an inspirational message, the Chancellor of the University of the Philippines, Los Baños, Dr. Jose V. Camacho Jr. Everyone, let's give him a virtual round of applause.
So pleased to join you today in this post-harvest research and training center's important event. And I'm very grateful to Dr. Elizabeth Mitcham, our previous speaker, for joining us and honoring our invitation. Let me also greet our partner, Dr. Jenny Ekman of the Australia's Applied Horticultural Research, and Dr. Q Seong Lee, the director of the Philippine Center to this important event of the Post-Harvest Horticulture Training and Research Center, being led by Dormi Del Carmen. We had a meeting yesterday here at the Office of the Chancellor. And to all our researchers and administrative staff members, and to all our participants in today's webinar, good morning. I'm so pleased to join you today in your 45th anniversary. I'm so proud of PHTRC's achievement, a trailblazer in post-harvest technology and training. With the theme Global Collaboration in Food Loss and Waste Reduction, I believe the theme is very timely and an important thing to tackle. We all know that 2022 has seen a sharp increase in the incidences of food shortages throughout the globe, brought about by losses in the agricultural sector and the disruptions in the supply chain. These were in turn triggered by the pandemic, the Ukraine Russian conflict, and the climate change. And resolving the global food crisis requires a collaborative effort by all stakeholders to come up with multiple solutions and different approaches. And one central approach is minimizing food loss and waste, which the UN Food and Agriculture Organization would estimate that around 40% of the world's food is lost after harvest, and 17% is wasted in retail and at the consumption level. These are very significant amounts that we must find ways to reduce. And today's webinar has brought together experts worldwide to share knowledge and best practices on how we can collectively lessen food loss and waste through post-harvest technologies. I commend PHTRC, one of the important units of the College of Agriculture and Food Science, for organizing this platform for dialogue. And I hope that we will have a clearer picture of the way forward after this webinar. I encourage all the participants to take this opportunity to listen and to engage with our speakers, to share their insights and to contribute to finding sustainable solutions regarding food waste, which is an important research and extension area that we are pursuing in our rebranded research and extension agenda of the university, which we all call the UPLB Agora. Agora, which stands for Accelerating Growth with One Research and Extension in Action, has important four pillars. And this would constitute uh, food security and sustainability, which the things that we're discussing today about food waste is an important aspect of this research and extension agenda. Other pillars of this rebranded research And the extension agenda of the university, which we call Agora, would include our focus on One Health, on resiliency and sustainability, and our focus towards uh, future communities and institutions. Maraming salamat at mabuhay po tayong lahat.
Maraming salamat po. Thank you very much, Chancellor Camacho, for that very insightful message and on how we can move forward when it comes to post-harvest food and loss waste reduction. So again, I would like to thank everyone here. If you have questions, you can send in your questions in the link that is posted in the Zoom chat for our speakers. For now, I believe we have a question for Dr. Mitchum. So let me check first. All right, so there's this one question. Dr. Mitchum, for post-harvest losses in emerging or developed markets, do you see opportunity to rescue these foods to turn into edible food, or are they at complete loss? How do we make this process more circular?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think there are opportunities depending on where you look at the losses. I mean, certainly we can do more with processing of foods that can help to reduce losses by, especially when you have an overproduction and there's not enough market for those products. So various ways of processing is certainly one way. When products have deteriorated some, there may still be some things some things we could do with them, whether they can be used for human food, potentially. Some of them can, depending on whether there's decay or other issues happening. But if it's merely a matter of texture loss, there might be some products, maybe you could think of like fruit leathers or something like that. Again, that's a processed product. Animal feed, of course, and then composting for soil amendments. I mean, there is a lot of effort looking at various ways to utilize potential waste and food loss. I think our first goal is to try to make sure that it's going to be human food. I think that would be, unless it's intended for animal consumption from the beginning.
All right, so we have one more question before we move on to our next speaker. What are the elements of a sustainable global collaboration on food and loss waste reduction, particularly if the collaboration is with developing countries?
Yeah, well, with the Horticulture Innovation Lab, we're doing a lot of work in developing countries, and food loss and waste is a major issue every place we're working. And there are a number of challenges. I think some of the key issues I would point to, I mean, one certainly is information. I think all members of the supply chain need information and knowledge to be able to know about what post-harvest practices are optimal and how certain practices affect the product. I mentioned in my talk that I think the linkage to the market is a really critical thing as well. And a lot of markets don't work very well in a lot of places. Where farmers aren't really very well connected to the market. And even the traders who do a lot of the handling in the middle, the incentives aren't really set up well for incentivizing doing a better job in post-harvest handling. Maybe you're not going to make any more money if you do a better job. So working on those market linkages and the incentives for the people who are handling the product, I think is another key one. And then of course, access to technologies that are appropriate and affordable, to the extent possible for these individuals is really critical.
All right, thank you, Dr. Mitchum, for answering the questions from our participants. And at this point, we would like to award the certificate of appreciation to Dr. Mitchum.
Thank you.
So please allow me to read the citation. This certificate of appreciation is awarded to Elizabeth J. Mitchum for sharing her knowledge and expertise as a research speaker on UC Davis, a history of research, teaching, and extension to reduce food losses that continues today during the PHTRC at 45 anniversary webinar, Fresh Talks, PHTRC webinar series episode 7 with the theme Global Collaboration in Food Loss and Waste Reduction, held on 27 October 2022 via Zoom. Given this 27th day of October 2022 at Post-Harvest Horticulture Training and Research Center, College of Agriculture and Food Science, UP Los Baños, Laguna. Signed, Dr. Dermita Del Carmen, Director of PHTRC, and Dr. Elpidio M. Agbisit Jr., Dean of the College of Agriculture and Food Science. Again, thank you very much, Dr. Mitchum.
Thank you.
All right. So moving on, I would like to call on Ms. Wela Absulio Morales, affiliate faculty member from the Institute of Crop Science and concurrently the assistant to the director of the PHTRC, to introduce our next resource speaker.
Thank you, Arlan. So once again, good morning. It's my pleasure to introduce one remarkable woman in the field of post-harvest science, whom I think has unlimited energy to share, work, and even travel for the love of post-harvest. She has more than 20 years of research experience in Australia, US, and the Philippines, with a frequent focus on post-harvest management of vegetables. She has worked for Commonwealth Scientific and Industrial Research Organization, UC Davis, New South Wales Department of Primary Industries, and has now been with Applied Horticulture Research for nearly 10 years. Her current research interests include internal mold of capsicums, food safety of melons, potato industry communications, and pretty much everything to do with mushrooms. She is also involved in a number of international projects focused on Tanzania, Benin, Sri Lanka, and of course, the Philippines. Today, she will talk about the post-harvest technology, reducing hunger, and improving human health. So let us all welcome Dr. Jenny Ekman. The virtual space is now yours, Dr. Jenny.
Thank you very much, Wella. Lovely introduction. And of course, I'm currently working with Wella on some projects in the Philippines. And I'm very excited to be working with Wella and also with Professor Emma Ruth Bayagan at UP Mindanao. And we have some colleagues at Visayas State University as well. So lots to do in the Philippines. And I'm very happy to be going after Dr. Beth Mitchum, who I did my postdoc with, which was one of the best times of my life. I reckon I did more in that just over a year with Beth than, you know, most other years. And Beth mentioned the 1-MCP treatment of pears, which I was actually involved in while I was at UC. So very nice to see that coming back again. So I might now, if I can share my screen. Can you see that okay?
Yes, Dr. Jenny.
Excellent, excellent. So post-harvest technology. And I thought this actually follows on really nicely from what Beth was talking about. There's a bit of overlap, but also I was going to give some examples of how us as post-harvest technologists can really help to reduce those losses and reduce hunger and improve human health. So why is post-harvest so important? A lot of the research on vegetables in particular has always been focused on growing them, you know, like fertilizer, irrigation, all this kind of stuff. But really, growing is just the start, because all this other stuff, very complex operations, happen from the time it's harvested until the time it actually reaches a supermarket or somebody's home. So if we think about what happens, like, oh yeah, we've grown some mangoes, but then we've got to pick them, we've got to treat them, we've got to store them, maybe wash them, grade them, pack them, cool them, transport, ripen them, and finally somebody gets to eat them.
You just.
Sorry? I can hear someone else. Is that okay? So in other words, more than 75% of value is added post-harvest. Now, I'm currently at a mushroom conference, and in their case, it's probably more like over 80% because the cost of harvest and cooling and packing is so high. So post-harvest is really the most important part of the whole process. And of course, quality is everything, because unless we have good quality, people won't eat the product. And we know that fruit and vegetables are so essential for human health. So whether it's vitamin C for, stopping you having deficiencies, carotenoids, fiber for digestion, anthocyanins, there's so many health benefits associated with fruit and vegetables. And yet we don't eat enough. So in Australia, we have a recommendation of 2 serves of fruit and 5 serves of vegetables each day, which is approximately 500 grams. Hardly anyone does that. The World Health Organization recommends at least 400 grams. Only 6% of Australians eat that amount of fruit and vegetables. But in the Philippines, I believe it's about 340 grams per day of fruit and vegetables. And in other countries like Sri Lanka, it's currently even lower. And this is especially among younger people. So this is Australian data of who eats how many vegetables. And we can see, I'm afraid, it's men are the worst offenders. You are not eating enough vegetables. But really, both men and women do not eat anywhere near the recommended daily serves. And the result, this is one of the results, is that, not enough fruit and vegetables, and we all get that little bit fatter, and that leads to all sorts of other chronic health issues. So, especially now we've been through COVID and we understand the importance of having a really good immune system. And the best way to do this is eat your vegetables. And there's lots of evidence for that. Then there's this blooming field of gut science, where we're finding out that we actually have neurons, like in our brain, which are in our gut. And so when you say, I've got a gut feeling, that's actually true, because your gut has responsibility for a whole lot of things that we didn't understand before, like mood and behavior. So putting the right things into your gut is important for so many other things. So that brings us to the war on post-harvest waste. Now, as Beth mentioned, there's a lot of waste of fresh produce post-harvest. And even though, it's a small portion of the amount of food that we eat, it's 50% of waste. Now, in places like Australia and the US, a lot of this is happening at the consumer. So we're just leaving stuff to sit in the fridge, and, you go empty your vegetable drawer and things are just rotting inside there. And it happens at the farm because it's not high enough quality to send. Whereas in the Philippines, there's a lot more waste is happening during post-harvest management, transport, and, that sort of retail end. So this is where we have to have our focus. So we have this food recovery hierarchy. Now, as we're mentioning, the best use of fresh produce is to eat it, feed it to hungry people. But then, you could potentially feed it to animals, their industrial uses, processing, then composting. But this is hard when you've got products which are very perishable. So again, this is the importance of post-harvest. So this is just a little bit of data from the Philippines. This was done by Professor Emma Ruth Bayogan at UP Mindanao. And she looked at the losses of Chinese cabbage. And the problem is that the outer leaves are trimmed to improve appearance at every stage. So in the end, only a third of that cabbage that's been grown is purchased and eaten. There's losses due to weight loss, bacterial soft ruts, all sorts of things. So it's really a big problem. So this is our post-harvest mission, to reduce waste and retain quality of fruit and vegetables from the time they're picked to the time they're eaten. and avoid pictures like this one, which I took at Sydney markets only a few weeks ago, of avocados and oranges just being tossed into a very large rubbish bin. So reducing post-harvest waste. And as Beth explained, there's a lot of factors that affect that, including how we're transporting and storing the item, the packaging, the atmosphere, time, but also the condition before harvest and how we're managing harvest and how we're managing the retail environment. So what can we do to reduce waste and to retain quality? All right, so I'm going to talk just a couple of examples, but I thought I would start by explaining what exactly is a Browning reaction, because I think this is important in understanding what we can do about it. So this is a picture of a cell. So we have a cytoplasm in which there are these polyphenolic oxide enzymes are floating around. The cell also has a vacuole, which is sealed off from the cytoplasm. And in that vacuole are phenolic compounds, which are quite good for health. Now, what happens when we cut or squash that cell is that membrane breaks and those compounds mix. And what happens is the enzyme reacts with the phenolic compounds, and it initially forms a thing called an orthoquinone. And after that, that oxidizes and it forms melanin. And melanin is the same compound as the brown. It's similar to the brown that you get in your skin from suntans, but it's also when you cut a product, if you cut an apple or you cut a lettuce and that cut surface turns brown, it's because of melanin. And again, bruising, symptoms of browning is because of melanin. So how can we prevent this formation of melanin? Well, one way to do it is to destroy the enzymes that cause this reaction. So this is some work we've done with lettuces, where one of the issues is the cut stem of the lettuce gets this sort of brownish color and it makes the lettuce look a bit old. And so we just exposed it very briefly to very high temperature water. It destroys those enzymes and you don't get the browning reaction. Now, it's a bit tricky for lettuce, but this is very useful for other products. So there are many things where a heat treatment can reduce that browning reaction. Another example is to extend storage life and improve sustainability. So this is with broccoli. I've done a fair bit with broccoli. In fact, I was recently called the god of broccoli. I don't know if that's a compliment or an insult. In Australia, broccoli is traditionally packed in styrofoam containers and they're topped with flaked ice. Now, this looks really nice because you've got lovely green broccoli sitting on ice. It protects against temperature fluctuations, so it's quite cheap insurance in that way. It looks nice and it keeps the broccoli hydrated, so it's all fresh and looks moist, full of moisture. On the other hand, it costs a lot of money. It uses a lot of energy. You're wasting drinkable quality water. And then when the ice melts, the broccoli is sitting in basically soup. So we have rots, we have splits, we have discoloration. It increases transport costs because you're transporting this huge box instead of a much smaller box. And styrofoam boxes will still look exactly the same in about 100,000 years' time. There is nothing we can do about them, really. They do not biodegrade, so they're an environmental disaster. So one way of extending the storage life of broccoli is treating it with 1-methylcyclopropene, 1-MCP, as Beth mentioned with the pears. And this blocks the effects of ethylene very effectively. In this case, it's usually marketed as Smart Fresh, although some other brands are now coming onto the market. And we can use this to stop the yellowing reactions of broccoli that are caused due to ethylene. Now this, in the case of apples, you usually release a gas into a storage room. But for broccoli, this doesn't really work because the broccoli is coming in and out quite quickly. But this new inbox application system means that you can just add it to a box. So essentially you get a sachet, you moistened it with some water, put it in the box, then seal the box with a plastic liner, and then you can transport it. And these are the kind of results you can see. So on the left, we have the packed in styrofoam box and filled with ice, and you can see some of the florets starting to yellow. Just with a cardboard box and a plastic liner, we've got terrible yellowing and rot. But with the Smart Fresh, it's a miracle. It's still beautifully green. And this was broccoli, which was subjected to really poor temperature management. It was transported from Western Australia to Sydney, which is usually takes about 3 or 4 days, and the temperature in the truck got up to 10 degrees. So it shows this really works, and this can really reduce waste and improve sustainability. Now, I mentioned before about heat treatments and their effect on browning. The other thing heat treatments can do is they can increase resistance to chilling, and they can reduce disease. Now, you may have seen heat treatment of mangoes in the Philippines, and this is conducted commercially. I know in Davao, there are places, companies that do heat treatments, and this reduces rots and improves post-harvest life. But you can use it for lots of other products too. So this is capsicums, and they've been stored for 6 weeks at 6 degrees, and they're in pretty poor shape unless they were showered with 55 degrees water for only 30 seconds before storage, and it's a miracle. Amazing. They still look perfectly good. And you can get similar results with tomatoes. In this case, they've been stored at a chilling temperature of 3 degrees and then shelf life. And this is the effect of the heat treatment. It really works. The only trouble is, of course, it's expensive because you've got to heat the water. So there's some technical difficulties. But if you don't have access to refrigeration, as in the Philippines can be an issue, then heat treatments can be a good solution. And I know that the post-harvest team at Versailles State University, I saw LJ come online before, have been doing some work on this. So we'll see where that goes. My third example, last example, is about reducing waste at retail. Now we have quite a big avocado industry, not as big as in Mexico, but we eat a lot of avocados. However, the industry estimates that about 25% of avocados are actually damaged by rots or by bruising before they're even sold. Now, bruising is a really big issue, and this is partly due to the supply chain, things that happen in the supply chain, but also due to mishandling by store staff and, most importantly, squeezing by consumers. Because the first thing anyone does, they go to buy an avocado, the first thing they do is they pick it up and they go, is it ripe? Is it ready to eat? So we came up with this strategy at retail of having sorted displays, so ripe avocados separated from unripe avocados. Now, this is not rocket science, but it means that if people want a ripe fruit, they can get it. And if they want an unripe fruit, they just pick one of those. Now, we had other triggers, and we made these foam pads which sat underneath them. So green avocados, green pad, black avocados, black pad, and put the header cards there to make it easy. So this is just one of the stores that we tried this in. Avocados were currently $2.99 each, which is kind of high. We start with that, and this is our sorted display on the left and our unsorted display. And we had a student sit up at the Dunkin' Donuts store, which was just above the shop, and watch how many avocados people squeezed and how many they bought. Great occupation. And so for every fruit purchased on an unsorted display, people squeezed 4 to 5 avocados. When we sorted the display, they only squeezed 2 and a bit. So 2 to 3 on average. And not only that, was there a 40% reduction in squeezing, there was also an increase in the number of fruit purchased by 30%. So just by sorting the display, it's such a simple intervention, and yet it can have a really big benefit. So in summary, most of the value of produce is added as it moves through the supply chain. And that's why we, as post-harvest technologists, are, arguably the most important people in that value chain. So without this post-harvest management, most people could not regularly eat fresh produce, which is essential for their health. And if we can get good quality, then people will eat more. So post-harvest technologies ensure that quality is maintained through the supply chain and food actually gets eaten rather than fed to animals or composted. So I would just say that post-harvest is where the rubber hits the road, as in it's where all the action happens. And so I'm very pleased that you have attended this Post-Harvest Technology and Research Centre webinar. And that's it from me. Thank you very much for your attention. And if there's any questions, happy to answer.
All right, thank you, Dr. Ekman, for that interesting presentation and for sharing with us your initiatives in reducing hunger and improving human health through post-harvest technology. So to our participants, the floor is now open for 1 or 2 questions for our resource speaker. You may now type your query using the Google form link, tinyurl.com/freshtalk7, posted in the Zoom chat box and the Facebook comment section. Again, we will be entertaining the rest of the questions that you may have during the open forum after the guest speakers are done with their presentations. But as of the moment, we have 1 question for Dr. Ekman. Here's the question, Dr. Ekman. The COVID-19 pandemic have lingering effect on the disruption of the supply chain, resulting to increased food loss and waste. What are the innovative strategies to counteract the effects of this disruption in the horticultural supply chain?
That's a very good question. And actually, that picture of the avocados and the oranges, that was directly as a result of COVID-related transport problems, whereby shipping containers take weeks instead of days to reach their destination. So what can we do about it? Well, I'm hoping that transport and supply chains are getting back more to normal. That's the key thing. But the other thing is being even more mindful of how we, harvesting a good quality product in the first place, growing a healthy product, managing temperature as well as we possibly can, like keeping that product as cool as possible. If necessary, using packaging materials to reduce water loss. All those things that we can do in order to extend post-harvest life in order to cope with those more variable supply chains. So I hope that answers the question.
All right, thank you, Dr. Ekman. There's another question for you.
Mm-hmm.
For the heat treating method, should this only be used right after harvesting, or can you use this in the middle of the supply chain to slow down browning?
It's best straight after harvest, because otherwise those processes will have initiated, so they will have started, but you may still get benefits even after some period after harvest. So if, for example, product was being harvested and then taken to a central trading post, for example, you could do those heat treatments there and they would probably be very effective. So it depends on the product. also, and what you're hoping to achieve with that heat treatment, whether it's primarily about browning or disease or what other things are you using it for? Anyway, yes, browning, disease, chilling resistance. So you just have to do your own little experiment, really, and check it out.
All right. Yeah. Do your own experiments, guys.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr.
Because it's fun to do anyway.
Right. It is fun. Science is
Yeah.
fun.
Science is
Thank
fun.
you. Right. Thank you very much, Dr. Edmond, for answering these questions. Again, we have more questions, but we will be entertaining them in our open forum after all our speakers are done with their presentations. And at this point, we would like to award the certificate of appreciation to Dr. Ekman. The certificate of appreciation is awarded to Dr. Jenny Ekman for sharing her knowledge and expertise as a research speaker on post-harvest technology, reducing hunger and improving human health during the PHTRC 45th anniversary webinar, given this 27th day of October 2022 at PHTRC UPLB College, Los Baños, Laguna. Signed, Dr. Del Carmen, Director of PHTRC, and Dr. Agbisit, the Dean of the College of Food, Agriculture and Food Science. Again, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Ekman. And moving on to our next speaker, may I call on Dr. Matilde Maunahan, our University Researcher and Extension Coordinator of the PHTRC, to introduce our next speaker.
Thank you very much, Sir Arlan. So I am very pleased and honored to introduce to you this morning a very hardworking and committed Korean project lead and collaborator for an earlier project named Establishment of Network and Model Manual and Post-Harvest Technology of Horticultural Crops in Asia, way back 2012. So Dr. Ji Gang Kim is a senior research scientist at the National Institute of Horticultural and Herbal Science, particularly for the Allium Vegetable Research Institute. And he has 30 years of research experience in post-harvest technology of horticultural crops and fresh cut produce processing. Dr. Kim previously served as the Director General of the Department of Horticultural Crop Research, and he also served as the Director of the Post-Harvest Technology Division at the NIHHS for 6 years. Dr. Kim served as Vice President of the Korean Society for Horticultural Science and the Korean Society of International Agriculture. He has conducted research on quality maintenance and food safety of horticultural crops since 1992 at RDA, and he has been developing a practical post-harvest handling manual for fruits and vegetables for the post-harvest industry. So our very project is also part of that particular initiative. He also conducted international cooperative projects on post-harvest management of horticultural crops with 13 Asian countries and 15 African countries for 7 years. So quite a feat. He has tried to reduce post-harvest losses of fruits and vegetables in Asian and African countries through international cooperation. And he is now focusing on post-harvest management of allium for the last remaining years of his active service. So without much further ado, let us welcome with a virtual round of applause, Dr. Ji Gang Kim.
Thank you, Deng. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, magandang umaga. It's my great pleasure to join PHTRC 45th anniversary web seminar. And I'm sorry I joined late because I was confused the time difference. Anyway, as she mentioned, I have conducted research on post-harvest technology for 30 years, and now I have just returned to research field, and I'm enjoying my last research for the last time of my service period. Today, I'm going to talk to you about post-harvest loss of onion through the case of Korea, which is titled Changes in Post-harvest loss of onion and Future Direction in Korea. Should I show a PowerPoint slide?
Yes, if you wish.
Well, can you see the PowerPoint
How
slide?
do we? Okay, we can. Wait.
Okay, can I start to?
Yeah, sir. We're screen sharing it for a while. It's okay, sir. It's
Okay. Okay. Thank you. I'm going to talk to you about changes in post-harvest loss of onion and future direction in Korea. First, what I'd like to talk about is the production and distribution of onion as an introduction. This slide shows how onion is important. Onion is a sixth-length vegetable in Korea in terms with cultivation area. Based on production, onion is one of the top three vegetable. Based on value, onion is number 2 vegetable in Korea. In general, there are two types of cultivation system according to variety: early maturing variety and mid-late maturing varieties. Anyway, onion is harvested from April to early June. After that, onion is cured. Then, in general, onion is stored from July to April for up to 9 months in Korea. Most of onions are stored and distributed by APC, abbreviation of Agricultural Product Processing Center, and local distributor called vendor. And most of onions are stored by them. And they distribute onions to wholesale market, distribution market, food company, etc. In general, APC, they deal with small and bulk packaging, and there are various packaging units. But local vendors, they deal with mainly bulk packaging. This graph shows vegetable and onion consumption. As you can see, vegetable consumption has increased, but it's not a big increase. Even though it's a slight increase, the absolute consumption is very high compared to other countries. Onion consumption has significantly increased, almost more than 3 times. Onions are one of yeah.
Excuse me, Dr. Kim. Can you please give us a cue if we're going to change slides already? Yeah, so we should proceed to the next slide because you're already with the consumption part. Okay, so you just instruct us when we should be going to the next slide. Thank you.
Okay. Onion is one of the export crop. The export increase mainly in case of excess domestic production. So whenever we have overproduction, we export more. And in 2019, onion export reached 50,000 tons for the first time in export history. But these days, this year, we expect a decline in onion export due to high domestic price. But we tried to export long-term stored onion and also early mature onion to make a whole year-round export system. If we used to export mainly the quantity is high in July and August before storage, when we have a large amount of onion, we used to export, but from this year, we have a plan to export year-round export system. Then we need a suitable post office handling for the export. Next slide. Is it okay?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Next slide, please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I'll tell you about post office losses of onion. And next slide. This table shows post office losses of onion after 8 months storage in 1990 and 2020. I have 30 years experience when I joined the post office research. In early 1990s, there are two types of storage system, room temperature and cold room storage. When onions are stored at cold room, during the storage, the post office losses were 17.4%. But these days, onions, the post office losses after storage, one is 8.1, the other one is 11.5. Including post office losses during distribution and sales, in 1990, post office losses were 35%, and 2020, post office losses were 17.1, 20.5 respectively. There are technology difference. In 1990s, curing, we did curing naturally and no humidity control. We used normal truck and manual loading. But in 2020, curing artificially, we used dehumidifier and wing body truck and parallel loading. Quite different. So the post office losses is reduced. Next slide. Now, I'll tell you how to calculate the post office losses of onions. As I mentioned, the onions are stored crops. So when we measure, when we survey post office losses, we have an equation. Table 2 shows the example of post office loss of calculation of onion. If you survey post office losses after 5 months storage, you may say that post office losses is 22%. After 8 months storage, you can say post office losses of onion is 32%. If you calculate average post office losses, 16.6 post office losses. But we should consider proportion of stock because onion shipment is different for each month. So when we calculate the post office losses, we use modified loss, considering proportion of stock, the shipment. So if we use modified loss, the post office losses of the onion is 13%, not 16.6%. So table 3 shows the post office losses of onion stored by Byunsan APC. We measure the post office losses. They stored onions for 8 months. Each month have different post office losses. As time goes on, losses is high. The average post office losses was 11.9%. But when we calculated with the modified loss, the post office losses was 11.6. Next slide. Which onions were not sold? Onions were discarded. These are symptoms of onions that are called post office losses, disease and physiological disorder. Table 4 shows the cause of post office losses. Over 50% of onions decayed, and others, physiological disorder or careless handling. Next slide. Now I'll tell you what caused post office losses. First, insufficient post office handlings. Even though onion industry, they use better post office technology, we still have careless post-harvest management, especially small, middle-scale onion industry. Improper curing on suitable cardboard box, careless temperature control. As you can see, careless curing and improper boxes for onion packing are still still we can find it. And improper field packaging, transport and storage also cause post-harvest losses. Some still use over packaging. As you can see, it's a big amount, 800 kilograms of onions in the bag. And farmers, they do not control humidity. And some onions are stored with the leafy vegetables. So those are one of a problem to cause post-harvest losses. Next slide. Another problem is you need to improve post-harvest facilities. We started to install cold room to store onions in early 1990s. So many post-harvest facilities for onion is aging facilities. So increase the poor insulated storage facilities. So we need to maintain the cold room, and there is a demand to remodel the post-harvest facilities. And transport and facility modernization of wholesale market is one of challenging. We have changed transport in the onion industry. They used to use a normal truck, but these days wing-body truck is common to transport onion to wholesale market and local market. But there is a need for improvement of onion collecting place in local wholesale market. In Seoul metropolitan area, their wholesale market, they are changing the facilities, but still local wholesale market, they need to improve their facilities. Next slide. I mentioned post-harvest losses of onion in 1990s. It's 35%. So when we started research on post-harvest technology, the post-harvest losses of onion was 35%. But after we installing post-harvest facilities, we could reduce post-harvest losses. And they adopt improved post-harvest technology like technical harmony between hardware and software. Then we could reduce post-harvest losses. Next, post-harvest industry, especially distribution industry, they applied post-harvest technology, then they could reduce losses of onions. So those are ways to reduce post-harvest losses of onion in Korea. Next slide. We had a policy to reduce the post-harvest losses. In the early 1990s, there was an intensive research support on post-harvest technology. So government established a government research unit dealing with post-harvest losses. And association related to post-harvest technology was established to communicate between research group and industrial group to make practical technology. And also government installed post-harvest facilities, APC, like packing house, throughout production area. So many areas, we built packing house. Private sector also invested and they tried to improve technology, and it is one of the way to reduce post-harvest losses. And post-harvest industry, they adopted improved technology and also export promotion policy of fresh produce was conducted by government. Then we could reduce post-harvest losses of fresh produce. Next slide. So these are examples when we disseminated improved post-harvest technology. We used the manual, and industry adopted the manual. And the picture, it was very effective photos to let industry recognize and apply proper curing. And we established the onion APC in all production areas. So in 1990s, post-harvest losses of onion was 35%. But since dissemination of improved post-harvest handling and establishment APC, we could reduce post-harvest losses to 15 to 20%. Next slide. Now I'll tell you current industrial post-harvest handling of onion, what Korean industry does these days. First, I will give you information on post-harvest management in the field. Harvesting work. Still, when we harvest onion, we do hand harvesting. It's more common. But we expect machine harvesting will be common within a couple of years. Until just 2 or 3 years ago, mechanical harvesting was not favored. So not many onion farmers was interested in mechanical farming, but because of wound of onion. But these days, all farmers, they are interested in mechanical harvesting. So we are preparing for mechanical harvesting. Next slide. After harvest, the next step is field curing and stem cutting. Onions are cured in the field for 2 to 5 days. And during the curing, onion should be avoid high temperature and strong sunlight. After that, onion stems are cut off the tops 5 to 6 centimeters above the onion bulb. These are post-harvest procedure after harvest. Next slide. There are different types of field packing. Net bag is most widely used now. But when we do net bag packing, there is a more labor force. So, and also it is difficult to mechanize the moving and other work. And there is also a physical damage. And plastic crate, we recommended use more plastic crate in the past 10 or 15 years ago because it is good to reduce post-harvest losses, but also secondary packaging for distribution and labor force. So these days, bulk packing, cold tone bag, is getting popular. Even though it may cause physical damage, but it could reduce labor. There is a data labor reduction. After they changed using tone bag, they could reduce 51% of labor. But when we used big tone bag containing 800 kilograms of onion, there was a poor airflow and more decay. But it is a decrease with the improved packaging unit and materials more ventilated. These days, we are very interested in the metal wire mesh bin. Recently introduced in the field, we had big wire mesh bin containing over 100 ton of onions. Then it was very difficult to move to the field. So nowadays we are using smaller mesh container containing 5 kilograms of onions. So we expect that mesh bin will be more used in the near future. Next slide. Now I'll tell you post-harvest management at APC, a packing house. First, when APC, when they get onions from farmers, they do inspection carefully. They check if the onion is cured well, they also check size and if there is a foreign materials. Before they collect onions, APC discuss with farmers to select the varieties and also let a farmer use appropriate fertilizer to store onion for a long time. Next slide. And APC also do curing, and there are different curing methods: rain shelter curing, second drying with pen, and air suction dryer, which has different pressure, and hot air drying. In the past, drying with the pen was more common, but these days, many onion industry use air suction dryer. So even farmers and APC, they are using air suction dryer to cure onions. Next slide. Next step is strategy. There are two types of strategy: long-term strategy and short-term strategy. For long-term strategy, onions are stored at low temperature, 0 to 1 degree Celsius, and with 60 to 70% of relative humidity. But for short-term strategy, we didn't use cold room. But these days, even for short-term strategy, the onions are stored less than 5 degrees Celsius storage room. Next slide. APC and local vendor, they consider better technology. So when they store onions, they lower the temperature gradually to make a good quality and to save energy efficiency. And onions are stored for a long time. So when onions are transported, there is water condensation on the surface of onions. So prevention of water condensation is very important to make a good quality during distribution. So APC and the local vendor, they also consider that technique to prevent water condensation. And some packing house, they use ozone generator during storage to control microbial decay. But these they beware work safety and onion physiological disorder. If the concentration is too high or the treatment is too long, then it may cause some work health problem and physiological disorder. So they set up the treatment, example, 1.5 ppm, 6-hour treatment per day, or 0.5 ppm, 1-hour intervals. Those are ozone treatment method. Next slide. After store, the next step is sorting and packing. Before sorting, I mentioned it is good to prevent water condensation. So they leave onions at room temperature for 1 to 7 days to remove water condensation. After that, they collect sound onions. Then onions are classified to 4 grades generally. And packing, onions, many netback packing, they industry use netback, but these days plastic and cardboard box are also used. Next slide. And palletizing and transport, onion palletizing is convenient to load and unload, and it can save time. So it is common. And when they do palletizing, they use pallet stacking frame to prevent shock damage. And when they transport onions, they use wing body truck. In the past, normal truck was used, but wing body truck is common to avoid strong sunlight and too high or too low temperature. Next slide. Now I'll tell you future direction for onion industry. Next slide. There is an issue in onion industry. In 1992, Production technology, excellent varieties, and storage improvements top priority. So storage improvement, post-harvest area is a top interest. But these days, most important thing is labor shortage, mechanization, and unfortunately, storage improvement, the post-harvest technology is not much issue because the post-harvest losses are not too high these days. So now we need to prepare mechanization even in post-harvest areas. Next slide. So first challenge is labor saving post-harvest management. About 80% of onions are expected to be harvested by machine in 2025. Then it may cause more quality problem, quality damage, but we should prepare for the mechanization of harvesting. After harvest, the onions will be handled by APC. In APC, there is a lot of work to move bulk onions for collecting, curing, and storage. So we need efficient work by machines and a suitable container. So we are started to adopt automated delivery and transport system. It is a hot issue, labor reduction or quality maintenance. As you can see, there are three types of post-harvest handling system. Type A is conventional system. Onions are packed with net bag. Type B is onions are packed in plastic crate, which is good to reduce post-harvest losses. But type C is onions using tone bag, so it's a labor-saving system. Even though it may cause more wound and more losses during collecting and packing onions, onion industry use type C these days because of a labor problem. Next slide. So this slide shows post-harvest management suitable for mechanization. During harvest and field packing and storage, may cause more post-harvest losses. But better curing and palletizing, better transport, it can also reduce post-harvest losses. Next slide. Second challenge is sanitation of cold storage room. These days, the onion industry realized that sanitation is good to reduce losses, so they are trying to adopt the proper sanitation for onion cold room. There are different sanitizers using in onion industry. One is chlorine-based sanitizer, ozone, sulfur fumigation, and mold removing chemicals. But still, many packing houses, they just follow the conventional sanitation method, not a proper sanitation system. So storage area, they are changing the sanitation system. Next slide. Third one is the post-harvest loss reduction of export onion. When we export onions, reduction of post-harvest loss is also very important to not to lose face. And so we are developing improved post-harvest handling for different onions. Early maturing onion, which has a soft texture, they need suitable post-harvest handling to export. And also export of long-term stored onion, important thing is removal of water condensation. So different handling for the long-term stored onion. And there are more requests to export onions packed with cardboard box. So we need to select proper onion boxes suitable for export. Next slide. And another challenge is temperature control in wholesale market. We want to minimize qualitative loss during distribution. We reduce the quantitative post-ups losses, but this is qualitative losses also. Loss reduction is also important. So in wholesale market, the environment of auction house is okay by auctioneers because there is a little loss. The auctioneers, they didn't recognize any post-ups losses except summer season. So they were not much interested in the facility improvement. But these days, there is a requirement of temperature control at wholesale market to maintain quality in the middle and late stage of distribution. Wholesale market is in the beginning of distribution, so that time we need to temperature control to maintain quality and also to prevent potential high temperature damage by modernization facilities. So wholesale market, through wholesale market modernization, we can control temperature in the future. Last challenge is the establishment of smart APC to improve storage system and precise quality control. We are trying to install combined curing and storage facilities. So post-ups handling and storage is done at one place. These are different places, curing and storage. But one place we can cure and store, and we can put onions, and also we can release onions in one place. So that is one of challenge, and we are starting to install that packing house. And establishment of automation smart system of onion packing house. We are optimize grading, packing, and delivery system, and also we want to predict environment and quality changes to maintain precise quality control. Next slide. Now I'd like to summarize my presentation in this table. This table shows prospects for technical changes in post-service management of onion. I predicted technical changes from 2020 to 2030. These days, harvest mechanization is 20%, but in 2030, maybe 90%. And these days, for field packing, net bag is used, but later, mainly mesh container will be used. And humidity control, 60% of storage room, they do humidity control, but next, over 90%. And this is to prevent water condensation, the temperature adaptation is only used. But next time, combined temperature adaptation and facility improvement and estimated shipping date, we consider all of them to prevent water condensation. And wholesale market, still no temperature control, but later temperature control. So through the change of the technology, in 2030, we can also reduce post-harvest losses. Mechanization and bulk loading, some increased post-harvest losses, but however, loss will be reduced through rapid movement, better quality control, storage disinfection, and smart management. So we can reduce post-harvest losses in the future too. Thank you for your attention.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Jigang Kim, for that insightful presentation and for discussing with us the changes in onion post-harvest losses and some of these future directions when it comes to the onion industry. Again, to our participants, you can ask your questions by simply typing them on the Google form link that is provided in the Zoom chat box and the Facebook comment section. And the rest of the inquiries will be addressed during the open forum that will follow after this one. So I believe we have one question now for Dr. Kim. Dr. Kim, the question is, sprouting and new root growth are the problems during cold storage. Are there commercially available sprout retardants that can be used as pre-harvest or post-harvest treatment as supplement to cold storage?
Yeah, there is a important technical problem during the storage of onion. Some country they use chemicals or some ethylene generator to prevent the sprout of onions. But in Korea, Korean consumers do not like using chemicals and or other things. So only we use temperature control and humidity control. With that, we can inhibit sprouting of onions. So in Korea, to prevent the sprouting of onion, the proper curing and also good environment during the storage. These are the key to prevent sprouting.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Kim, for sharing with us your precious time. And again, we would like to give our certificate of appreciation to Dr. Jigan Kim. So the certificate of appreciation is awarded to Jigan Kim for sharing his knowledge and expertise as a research speaker on changes in post-harvest loss of onions and future direction, given this 27th day of October 2022 at PHTRC UPLB. Signed, Dr. Del Carmen and Dr. Agbisit. Again, thank you very much, Dr. Kim.
Salamat. Thank you. Yeah.
Kamsahamnida.
Yeah.
And now, to all our participants, the floor is open for questions. Again, you can type in your questions in the Google form link that is in your chat box. And to facilitate the open forum portion of our program, I would like to call on a former PHTRC director and now PHTRC consultant, Dr. Edralina P. Serrano. Morning po, Ma'am Lines.
Ay, ba't ayaw? Ay. Uy. Saan ako? Ito.
You're on po. You're on already.
Okay. Yeah. Good morning. Good morning. And we are very pleased for us to have Dr. Jigan Kim, Dr. Ekman, and Dr. Mitcham in this anniversary celebration of PHTRC. So we have now come to for our speakers to more or less give insights on the questions that are here. I would like to read that for Dr. Kim. He's here now, and the question is: does South and North Korea trade onions? Dr. Kim.
It's a simple question. No trade.
No trade.
Like China and Taiwan. No trade. Yeah.
Okay. And this is my question to Dr. Kim. I have a student who worked on onions, pre-harvest anti-sprouting treatment. This is making use of ethylene. Do you have some studies to support this, or to support this particular study?
Yeah, we consider that use of ethylene generator to prevent the sprouting of onions, but we haven't tried yet because sprouting is not much serious problem in the Korean onion industry. As long as we do proper curing and proper storage system, then not much sprouting system. The decay is more problem than sprouting. So we do not use ethylene to prevent sprouting in Korea.
It is a pre-harvest treatment. So before it is applied 2 weeks before harvesting. So that is the temp. But anyway, that is an information which I can give it to some of our speakers, which they might want to look into in the future. This is one for Dr. Ekman. Dr. Ekman, are you still here? Yes. Okay. So one question for Dr. Ekman is, I agree that marketing is harder than farming. Do you have any suggestion on how to reduce this problem? Wala na. Oh, I'm sorry. Also, no, Dr. Ekman is no longer around. So I think this one is for Dr. Mitchum. MAP is a very practical, affordable technology, but the problem is its contribution to environmental degradation. Biodegradable plastic is one of the answers. In developing countries, development and adoption of biodegradable packaging is relatively slow and is quite expensive. What are the alternatives? Dr. Mitchum?
Thank you. That's a really hard question because I don't know of a good answer now. There are a number of different types of alternative plastic materials that are under development, some of these based on different plant products. And I know, well, we had a visiting student in our lab recently who did some work looking at just the water loss capabilities of some of these alternative kind of compostable packages. And we found that it really didn't reduce water loss or vapor transmission was quite high. And so even just for water loss, that alternative package didn't work very well. We didn't actually test it for oxygen and CO2, but I'm imagining it probably wouldn't have worked too well for that either. So it's a huge challenge, and I don't know what the answer is, but we need to get some material scientists, food scientists, and experts, maybe a kind of a multidisciplinary team to really tackle this issue, because it's a very big challenge.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Dr. Mitchum. Anybody can answer this. Any of you can answer this. According to cold chain developed, are there any suggestion for a small farmer using cold chain strategy for link market from field harvesting? So, Dr. Mitchum?
I can speak to that first, and then if
Dr. Kim can
weigh in. So there are a number of options to consider that are less expensive. One is the small CoolBot cold rooms that I showed in my presentation. They're still pretty expensive though for small farms. We actually find that they're probably a better fit for maybe a collection center or a market location or a farmer association where it's a group of farmers who are collecting product together. At the farm level, depending on the climate, sometimes there's some smaller scale evaporative cooling units that can work on the farm level. But the challenge with so they're good for just a couple of days of storage if you're harvesting and you want to collect product and then take it all to market at once. but they don't work very well in humid climates. So I think in the Philippines, it probably wouldn't be a good solution. But those coal rooms, I've seen them built for as little as $4,000 US, but it's still an investment. So it's better for a group of individuals to come together to purchase something like that.
Thank you very much. Dr. Kim?
Yeah, it's not easy to establish cold chain system from field to packing house. It costs a lot, but we are encouraging production area to adopt cold chain system. So it depends on central and government support. So some local government, they support to establish cold chain system from field to packing house. So without support by government, it takes time, I think. Okay, that is my answer.
Yeah, in relation to that government support, one question here is, what is the role of the government in post-harvest activities for its optimization? So this is a question. The role of government in perhaps implementing post-harvest activities for its optimization. So that's the question.
Yes,
Anybody?
another good question. I'll say a few things, and I'm sure Professor Kim will have more. I think there can be a role for government in a couple of areas. I know, for example, if you wanted to make a capital investment and buy some equipment, in many parts of the world, the cost of loans is very high, so the cost of credit. So that's one area where government could assist, or they could also offer subsidies for investments in expensive technology for improving post-harvest handling. That's been effective in some places. Also, there are some policies that can impact the ability to implement good post-harvest practices. One is import tariffs for supplies, whether it's packaging or quality measuring equipment, other kinds of things that people need, oftentimes have really high import tariffs. The government could get involved in helping to reduce those and help to facilitate these kind of technologies being implemented. Yeah, I think those are some of the. I know there's some rules on transportation too. In some places, I know that the pricing structure is set up so that you pay by the package rather than by the pound. So it tends to encourage people to stuff as much as possible into a single container, which causes a lot of loss and waste. So those sorts of policies could also potentially be changed by government actors.
Thank you. Dr. Kim, do you have other thoughts about that?
The government has a strong policy to stabilize the price for consumer and producer farmers. So when we have overproduction, government should do something to compensate the price for farmers. So control of supply and demand is very important government policy to make to stabilize the price. Government have a policy to export overproduction of products. So then we need better quality management system to export fresh produce. So this is one of government policy related to post-harvest technology.
Yeah, I have one question related to government support. In your countries, for example, what support is given to the standardization of the quality of marketed produce?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's one I didn't mention. But yes, in the United States, we actually have a very well-developed grades and standards system. There are federal minimum standards at the national level, and then many states have their own regulations as well. And then sometimes individual industries as a group will come together and have their own standards. But so there's a whole system of inspection, either at the shipping point and sometimes at the destination market, to inspect the product to see if it's meeting the minimum standards that are marked on the outside of the package.
Thank you. Dr. Kim?
Yeah, many fruits and vegetables, each fruit has quality standard, but in market, sometimes does not follow the standard. So there is a little gap between government standard and market standard. So we are now trying to reduce the gap. Yeah.
Yeah. Same here in the Philippines. We have so many quality standards, but it is not being followed. Even in export, the standards that are being followed by exporters are the standards of the importers. So that's the. Okay, so the other question is, what can you say about imperfect produce? Do you think there is a sustainable market for them?
That's a good question. That got pretty popular here in the US for a while. There were a number of supermarkets and also some online platforms that were selling imperfect product. There's still some that are functioning. I think there's a certain consumer that's interested in purchasing that, people who want to support sustainability, and but it requires an investment in getting those products from the producer to the group that's doing this specialized marketing for it, and it hasn't gone mainstream yet. I think if it went more mainstream and it was done by most markets, then it probably would be more successful. But I do know there's ones, I can't think of the name of the program, but there's a program where they work with supermarkets to market imperfect products, and they market them at a lower price.
Lower price.
And actually the supermarkets, the markets actually liked it because they felt like it brought more customers into the store, and then those people purchased other things. So they didn't see it as competing with their more expensive produce. But so in that case, it was actually sold at a lower price. But there are other examples where it's not really less expensive, and it's more marketed to kind of an upscale client who has, who's worried about the environment and wants to do the right thing.
Yeah, we've seen that also in Thailand, marketing imperfect produce in many of their supermarkets and at a lower price.
Yes. Okay.
Dr. Kim, can you answer that, please? If you have some other thoughts.
Actually, I think Dr. Mitcham answered all, and I'm sorry, I didn't, Dr. Sarano, I didn't hear you when you asked us.
Okay.
My staff was waiting for us, waiting for me, and he mentioned something, so I didn't.
Okay. Yes.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Thank you. Dr. Kim, between the red and the white onion, which is easier to grow and which is higher yielding and more profitable?
I'm not an expert in variety and cultivation area, but in Korea, it depends on consumers. They prefer white onion, yellow onion to red onion, but the red onion is used for processing, so different purpose. But the yield, it depends on the varieties, but in general, red onion has high sugar content and high yield, as far as I know. Yeah, compared to yellow onions. White onion is very rare in Korea. Okay.
Okay, thank you. What else? Okay, this one is for Coolbot, Dr. Mitchum. And it says here, what is the capacity, range, how big is the storage room using Coolbot equipment or device?
Yes. Well, we've used, I think the largest one we have built, and again, they're for small scale farms, I think was about 12 metric tons, and it had a single air conditioner. But our engineers tell me that it should be possible to have a larger room, and you would just need to have a couple different air conditioner systems and cool bots to cool it. So you would have to make sure you had enough air conditioner capacity for the size of the room. But one of the really important factors is to make sure that the room is really well insulated. That allows you to get to the lower temperatures and also reduces the cost. If you're using electricity, it'll reduce the electricity costs.
Thank you. Okay. One question here is that since this is an interdisciplinary subject, post-harvest for that matter, how can private sector help in reduction of post-harvest loss in developing countries? Not only perhaps developing countries, but developed countries as well.
You want to take that one first?
Yeah, I want to answer
Okay,
Dr.
Kim.
Kim first.
I keep going first,
private,
so I'll let you go first, unless you want me to.
I think it's a topic of next web seminar. It takes time to explain the strategy. How can I
the
answer?
private sector? What can the private sector do to reduce losses? What contribution can they make?
We have two types of private sector to improve technology to reduce loss by themselves. But the other private sector, they are waiting to get something from government. So both sides. But the active private sector, without support, they do. Because since they find the reduction of loss is important, and even though it is not related to their income, they can have good reputation. Then when they sell their products, they can sell at high price. So since they find that, the private sector invests in adopting better technology and better facilities. But still, some private sector, they are waiting for government support. So both ways. And next time, I will consider more to better answer. Okay.
Oh, thank you for that, Dr. Mitchum.
Yeah, that was actually a really good answer. I mean, I think for private sector, if they're willing to partner with extension or research people who have an understanding of post-harvest and really look at their operations to see where things could be improved and understand what the losses either the complete loss or the degradation of quality, and how if it does impact their profitability or not. Because I think a lot of companies maybe haven't actually paid enough attention to actually realize that maybe they could make more money if they address some issues in their supply chain. So I think maybe just more having an open mind and a willingness to explore, their practices and see if there's some improvements that would be beneficial.
Thank you. Thank you for those answers. Okay. The next one is, what are the innovations you have taken to reach or to cooperate with producers, handlers, and retailers? So I think this is the last question.
Innovations we've taken to collaborate with these different parts of the industry.
Yes.
I think that's a good one for Dr. Kim to go first. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure he has a lot to say.
Yeah, the answer to that is in your both of your presentation, right? So there are so many innovations that you have developed, and I think it's a matter of accessing these innovations that you have done. Okay.
And
so,
one thing I didn't say on the last answer, it's a challenging thing, but I think in some cases, industry can step forward and actually fund research to address problems that they might be having in their supply chain or in post-harvest handling. And then that partnership, and when you fund the research, you work together with researchers, it develops that relationship that can continue after that, but also can help answer some important questions. I know it's not a common thing in every part of the world, but it can be quite successful.
Yeah. I think that is being done in Australia and in Canada. They have this marketing agreement and a technology development collaboration from the private sector to the, in fact, universities who do research.
Yeah, it's pretty common in California as well.
So, Dr. Kim, do you have?
Okay, innovation, field of post-harvest area is adoption of a smart system during the distribution. So when we have a problem, now we are getting data, and when we have a quality problem or post-harvest loss, the analysis of the cause is more important. Then we can also predict what are the good treatment to prevent the cause. And so we are getting data, and now we are trying to use those data to reduce post-harvest losses and to find precise methods to control that. So I think so. That is one of innovation in post-harvest area. Thank you.
Yes. Oh, thank you very much. So we come to the end of our forum since there are no more questions. Thank you very much, Dr. Micham. Thank you very much, Dr. Kim, for being our presenters this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Serrano. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Dr. Serrano, for this for moderating our open forum, and also a big thanks to our resource speakers, Dr. Micham, Dr. Ekman, and Dr. Kim. And now to give the closing remarks, let me call on the Associate Dean for Research and Extension of the College of Agriculture and Food Science, Dr. Lilia Fernando Corpuz.
Good morning, everyone. First, let me congratulate the Post-Harvest Horticulture Training and Research Center, or the PHTRC, for its 45th anniversary. Over the decades, the PHTRC has developed several technologies for the country addressing post-harvest problems in horticultural crops, providing assistance and support services both to the academe and the industry. As the center moves towards its golden year, this webinar on global collaboration in food loss and waste reduction signals another innovation frontier that the center can focus on. The UNFAO has signposted that collaboration and partnerships are indeed essential in maximizing the positive impacts of reducing food loss and waste. The aforementioned increases farmers' income, improves business margins, and saves money for households. It strengthens food security for all, in particular, the most vulnerable. They always say in the Philippines, walang nasasayang na pagkain. Translated as, in the Philippines, or for us Filipinos, no food is wasted. Because we always have something for leftover foods. Like when I was a child, my grandparents just gave the leftover foods to our chickens, livestock, etc. But that's in a small scale, a household scale. The challenge for us is how to minimize waste and food loss in the industrial or larger scale. With the principles and examples shared to us by Dr. Mitcham, Dr. Ekman, and Dr. Kim, I am hopeful that we can adopt their techniques and extend these techniques to our stakeholders in the country. On behalf of the College of Agriculture and Food Science, I would like to thank our honorable speakers, again to Dr. Elizabeth Mitcham, Dr. Jenny Ekman, and Dr. Jigang Kim. We hope to have a continued collaboration with you and your institutions in our post-harvest technologies. Again, congratulations to PHTRC, to their director, Dr. Del Carmen, and the steering committee for this webinar, for a job well done. Thank you and have a nice day.
Thank you, Dr. Lilia Fernando, for that message. And to all our participants, we hope that you bring with you the learnings that you have gained from this episode. And just a reminder, kindly fill out the evaluation form for you to receive the e-certificate. The link is shared on your screen and also posted in the comment section or in the Zoom chat. Please type in your browsers bit.ly/freshtalk7eval, or you may answer the evaluation form by scanning the QR code that you'll see on your screen. So we will open the evaluation form until tomorrow, October 28th at 5 p.m., and you will receive the certificate after 5 working days. For future announcements, please like and follow the official Facebook page of PHTRC, fb.com/PHTRC-UPLB. And at this point, we would like to once again extend our sincerest gratitude to our esteemed resource speakers and the UPLB officials for being with us during this online event. We would also like to acknowledge the hard work of the men and women behind this webinar series. So shout out to PHTRC's Extension Committee and all the staff of PHTRC. Kudos and congratulations again. So again, thank you to all attendees for actively participating in this webinar. Please stay tuned for the next episodes of Fresh Talks. This has been your host, Arlan Rodeo. Until the next time. Stay safe, everyone. Goodbye.
Southeast Asia is predominantly agricultural, but increased production of horticulture crops has not been adequate to meet demand. The main cause is high post-harvest loss. A Philippine survey on selected fruits and vegetables showed that post-harvest losses ranged from 32 to 78% or even higher under unfavorable circumstances, such as typhoons and delayed shipment. Post-harvest handling system is the weakest link in the production marketing chain for fresh produce. High post-harvest losses mean less available food and reduced income for farmers and traders. The time, resources, and labor used for production are also wasted. If losses are reduced by 10%, the country could save millions of pesos per year. The present PHTRC without the ASEAN is known simply as PHTRC. Its vision is to be the center of academic and technological excellence on post-harvest science of tropical horticultural crops in the ASEAN region that is internationally connected and industry-oriented. Its mission is to modernize and enhance the global competitiveness of the Philippine horticulture industry through post-harvest systems development and improvement. The center is guided by its three major mandates. Most post-harvest basic researches in the country are done at PHTRC. It covers morphoanatomy, biochemistry, pathology and entomology, post-harvest physiology, biotechnology, engineering studies conducted in collaboration with the Agricultural and Bioprocessing Division of the Institute of Agricultural Engineering, UPLB, and socioeconomics. These basic researches have led to the development of technologies. The PHTRC Extension Program and activities include action research projects and technical assistance to industry. PHTRC also offers summer short courses and regular courses for different industry stakeholders, holds conferences and study tours, participates in various agri-exhibits nationwide. The PHTRC has produced educational materials on post-harvest handling. It also continues to provide assistance to the horticulture industry, academic institutions, and research agencies. Through the years, PHTRC has supported instruction. It handles 8 subjects, leading to post-harvest field of specialization that is being offered by the Institute of Crop Science. It also supports instructional activities by initiating courses, publishing teaching materials, and providing its facilities for the courses. Today, the PHTRC continues its research and extension programs towards reducing losses, maintaining quality, and ensuring safety of perishable crops. The PHTRC still faces the challenge of generating more basic information. It has to develop new and better post-harvest technologies and systems. It has to address training needs and strengthen the post-harvest extension delivery system. All these are being done towards a globally competitive horticulture industry.